Welcome to a special rock and roll edition. First workout of 2026. It is January 1st, 2026, and I'm watching the last game, great game by my 49ers versus the Chicago Bears, week 17. 49ers, go Niners, go Niner. Faithful, the Niner Empire from Montreal, Hawk Island. Let's get it for the Draconis, Imperium, jeunesse, Ortus. Gonna be working out with two bags. Well, four bags actually, two and two, so green and red. And it's a bit moody, but gotta be grateful with gratitude. Grateful, thankful. My rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, and paid Netflix. Paid 1/3 of my phone. Gotta give a shout out to my anonymous friend. If I make a billion, a trillion, a million, gonna give 50%. And I'm doing this video with a budget phone, but gonna be working out with some cans. So this is improvised weights here on this chair, auctioning everything that I have, the pants, the underwear, the t-shirt, and gonna be working out for about an hour and a half, and said I'm gonna start the year by a good workout, a geopolitical meditation, and it's rock and roll, sports and fitness, geopolitics 24/7 for yours truly. And that's how we got, that's how we drill. Of course, we gotta get it for those butchers, bakers, nurses, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, the welders, and all those, of course, involved in the production, distribution of food. Gotta give a salutation to the nurses who finished their 12-hour shift now. So maybe I was a bit moody. I got a bit of maybe PTSD, blackout flashes, but live with my scars. And I guess many of us are scarred, and many of us are financially stressed. My only stress now is actually financial. And for 2026, my wish list is to joy, health, regeneration, rejuvenation for the North American Collective, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, the 63. Let our empire rise and be for the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, for the Dragon Army, Imperium, Draconis, Legionis, Pledge your legions. And this is gonna be my post-workout half meal. Already had half of a pie, and now I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna be working with. And here we gonna be hydrating. I gotta take a little sip because it's pretty full. Hot tea, 2 cups. The red and white, Canada, United States fusion thereof into the Imperial Republican complex, north and south. Always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the truckers, the electricians, the plumbers, the welders, the nurses, the truckers, the grocery store clerks, the warehouse workers, always for the train conductors, ambulance workers, our brothers and sisters in uniform, red and white, always as a universal revolutionary interest, pro labor and love. Here we are going to be watching last week's great game because I saw the highlights, but the game was so good that it deserves to be watched and worked out on with, So here we go. This is actually tea. Got some tea, and I put a little bit of cognac, a little bit of cognac because it's the New Year's, getting ready before the full moon, and gonna get it for the full moon before we get it on. And that's what we're gonna see. So we got two bags, and in each bag there's to symbolize the importance for food security. And thank you for making my year of more food secure by the donations. I'm gonna start the new year by having these cans. So we got a big one, we're gonna take them out. So in my right hand I'm gonna have one bag full of cans which symbolize, well, they're actually full of, there's is my food security. So starting the new year with some food security, I guess. And food security is important, for the development, the maintenance of civilization thereof. As I'm calling for great charity, I wanted to see more charity done, and I'm calling on the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB to donate, please, and reduce the cost of the tickets by 44.9%. See, this is the bag, and here we're gonna put the big one. We're gonna do exactly just like those rocket cylinders, we launched those rockets to launch those satellites in the sky. So here we got some diced carrots. This is 6 pounds. See, it's Canada, product of Canada there. Product of Canada, product of Canada. That is the product of Canada. See? So we're going to put this in the middle, and around the bottom we're going to put the smaller one. So we're going to start with the big one and put it inside. So thank you to all those food producers across the North American Collective, and got to salute those flipping some burgers, cheeseburgers. And see, we got some peas, Canada made peas, and we're going to put around about it. And then we got another can. That's what I love, a little bit of beans with pork, old fashioned beans with pork. Then we got some more, of course. Here we got some beef steak. This is just the sauce, of course. And then we got another ones here. We got got another whole kernel corn, so that's what we got. A little bit of whole kernel corn, and then we got another one here. We got some mixed vegetables, and that's how we got a little bit of that rock and rolling with that, and that's how we gotta get it on that rock and roll loving. And here we got some more mixed vegetables with that, and that's how we got now another one of this is sauce, champignon mushroom sauce. We got that mushroom sauce there, and that's how we're gonna concomitantly be, and of course be the appellations where we are now to be translucent. And here we got another one, another beans with pork, beans with pork, beans with pork. So here we got one. So this is about 22 pounds, and see how it looks. If I show you what I'm working with, as I'm gonna check. Oh, I already scored 7. I see. This is what it is. So this is what it looks like. The bag. This is bag number 1. See, so it looks like it's a cylinder from a rocket in a parallel life. It is the year of darkness, February 2030, and I designed, built satellite supercomputers, rockets, and all things to do with telecommunications. In that parallel life, I'm also on Aspiesque. I have Asperger's, so it's my communication styles and can some be more divergent than the normal populace. So I live with this neurological mental condition known as Asperger's, HFA, high functioning autism. So this is the second bag to my left, because this one that we just saw was for my right hand, and this is going to be for my left. So we got green beans, cut green beans. See, we got cut green beans here, product of Canada, product of Canada, product of Canada, product of Canada. Embassy Lucky Boy cut green beans. So this is a 6-pounder plus whatever is inside, and then we got 2 bigger ones. Well, this is medium size. This is black beans. Black beans. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna take them out and then put them back in. And this is evaporated milk. The best before date is 2024, but in theory it should be still good 2 years after the best before date, depending on the product. I have some experiences with working in the food bank, and myself have volunteered and worked in the food bank, black beans, and thus I know that, of course, best before date is not the same as EXP, expiry date. They're two different. You got to make the distinction and discernment thereof and the judgment. This is 2026. This is still good to go. We're first day of 2026. Cream of mushrooms. So gotta salute, the truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, firefighters. Another cream of mushroom. Food security super important, primary, and of course, my only stress now being that I'm financially stressed. Another cream of mushroom, but money is to buy, sell my DRT best, and here we go. A little bit of peas, a smaller one, just like we got the big one there. This is the peas made in Canada, but this one is a bit smaller. See, made in Canada, but it's the same company and the same peas as in the other big one. So we're gonna operate the same. Put in this bag. We're gonna put the big one first, and then around it we're gonna put the medium ones, then the smaller ones, and then we got some work. We can work train exercise, the biceps, and there we go. And put this one then in the bag, and this one then in the bag, and the other one in the bag. And this is how we improvise weights. I guess I can't afford, and I wouldn't even go to a gym personally. If I would have a house, I would have my own gym. I would actually have my own dragon lair gyms, maybe designed after my workout models that I created in 2019. And you can check my workout which I created. I performed more than 372 sessions thereof of my own created workout training program system. And of course, that was the complementary where we are now to be regarded. And of course, the dimensions where we are, the functionality, but you can check it for yourself now. So see, this is what it looks like, the second bag. So it's basically very similar to the first bag. Around about the big one, there's the smaller one. So it looks like a rocket cylinder that would launch, but of course, NASA satellites and Dragon Corporation in the future. So here we got one bag, and then we got the second bag, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. So that gives us a little bit of that rock and roll. And see, we're going to be watching last week's game, San Francisco versus Bears. They both were 11-4. 11-4. So here we go. This is going to be to my left hand, just for the Dragon Army Red, and 2 bags, right, to be supportive enough for the strength. And yeah, they're about between, I would say, anywhere between 15 to 25 pounds each. Anywhere. So I got it already. So 2 bags, a red one and a green one, symbolizing the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom. There's Party! Party number 13. Flashes 1, 2 Kittle, no, 2 Tungers, Tonges, sir. Party, Mr. Irrelevant. Gotta get some of that loving, rock and rolling. And That's where we're gonna get some drills. So let's go. Let's start the workout. Already been on an hour march earlier, so gonna get some of those drills. So that we're gonna get 6 yards to the right, 6 yards down the middle, and 6 down to the left. That's like a triangle. That's 6 plus 6 plus 6. That's 18. Get a first down, and always love sports and exercising and fitness and rock and rolling. I have my neurodivergence, so whenever it is that I'm working out, training, and exercising, or looking at some sports, I can be super focused. There's the field goal, but from my Aspiesque perspective, as I see football, there's a lot of mathematics in football, although you might not be able to perceive it at all times, but you can see that velocities, distance and plays and trajectories and ellipses and yards, and I guess you can convert the yards into meters and or meters into kilometers, and it's not really kilometers would be total, right? If we are to take all the plays, all the yards gained, at one point it will be into kilometers. Let's say how many yards for each team. If each team, let's say, have 500 yards and the other 600 yards, then we get close to kilometers and miles. So it can be added up, so we can play with those numbers mathematically. For example, let's say how many total yards were gained by all teams. So let's say total yards which were gained during the game, because this was a high scoring game, it could be maybe more than 1,000 yards total, rushing yards and playing yards and scoring yards and catching yards and passing yards and rushing yards and passing yards for both teams. If we add it up, that will give us kilometers and miles, right? But all of the whole game, so of the whole game, not just by quarter, right? Ooh, what a play! And I love football, gridiron. Although dancing is my favorite sport. So gonna get that rock rolling, and I have these red gloves. My anonymous friend gifted me 2018. 2018 when Donald Trump, Granddaddy Trump, made the mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel, and Granddaddy Trump made the mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel back then. And I'm always putting it for the 10, the 50, and the 3, the 63, conquer Italy for the North American Collectif, as I was born in the United States 3 times post 7076, once as a woman, twice as a man. Served in the same United States Armed Forces, 2 different wars, 156 years apart. And my anonymous friend gifted me these red gloves, auctioning them for a million, a billion, a billion, a trillion, showing my booty rainbow, dragon booty for a trillion. Got trillions of kisses, collected from the forgotten goddess rock and roll. It's always God bless, goddess kiss, the coming of our empire, and financially stressed. But due to my Asperger's neurological mental condition, I have to say that in my community, although we constitute less than 1% of the population for the Asperger's community, it is about less. The unemployment is so high, disproportionate to the population, that is horrible for North America, for both Canada and the United States. Sometimes it's higher than 80%, even higher than 85%. That's 4 out of 5, although we are less than 1%. And myself, it took me some years to finally accept it, because I didn't want to accept my neurological mental divergent condition known as Asperger's, aka high functioning autism. HFA, high functioning autism, is the same as Asperger's. Circa 2013, 2014, they have merged. So they have merged in consequence, and consequential merger thereof is that I still use Asperger's, and I'm an Aspie, Aspie is how we relate to each other, and sometimes the communication styles can be more difficult to understand. It requires a lot of patience, and the way we structure our communications is because of our brain is different, so we process information differently, and we have certain difficulties when it comes to social skills and understanding unwritten social rules and norms. So, thus, it is conclusive that our unemployment rate stands at 80%. So it's a very, very high unemployment rate, super high. It is extremely high. 4 out of 5 Aspies like myself are unemployed, not because we get the jobs. It's just keeping them long term, just like long term friends. I made so many friends in the past 11 years, but I lost them all. So for now on, because it's New Year's time to make those resolutions, means writing down my rock and roll songs, because I write rock and roll songs, create them on the daily. And of course, those resolutions is, of course, on the daily, where have the concomitant aspects of the relationships where we are now are, of course, in the domain that we have to say and state, of course, that concomitantly where we are today, we have to resolutely be, and of course, conquer the strategic aspects of being able to build bridges within myself and the neurodivergent community. One of the resolutions is that I do not, that is, for me, from now on, it's friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. You gotta be 18 for that play. Friends with benefits only. You gotta be 18 for that play. Say hey, you gotta be 18 for that play. If you're black or white all rainbow. Don't waste my time, please. I don't want to waste yours. Got kisses by the goddess from the goddess, and that's it. That's all rock and roll, and that's it for the concomitantly. And of course, the appellations where we are now to be relationships about is of course all those domain where we got now concomitant to stay and to be of course appellatives of course of the norms, and to learn the way for non-written social rules and non-written engagement is of course to be able to basically and fundamentally build bridges, small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, extra large bridges within those four categories. Of course, those are the four main categories of bridges which we have to build with each other. And thus, we are on the set hot, ready to accept friends with benefits. And for that play again, you gotta be 18 plus. So basically, you gotta be born before December 31st, 2007. Because if you do the math, of course, before December 2007, 31st December 31st, 2007, you have to be born before that date. And of course, those are the dates where you have to be born thereof. And of course, it is something where we have to ourselves be admitting that we have to calculate, and thus by calculations, one has to be born before December 31st, 2007, in order for one, of course, to be eligible for that play, for me to accept you as a friend with benefits, 18 plus for the 63, always let our empire rise and be, and always working out, training, exercising for butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers, engineers. And it's time to create the third party, Republican Democrat Imperial Party of the North American Collective, the N.A.C.W.P, the North American Collective Workers Party, as we move into January. For the Dragon Army, being an androgynous pansexual, I'm an Aspiesque, independent artist, athlete, double A athlete, artist, and double A artist and athlete. And parallel, of course, to being an artist and an athlete, I'm also a philosopher and a thinker and a mystic, and an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, strategist, and philosopher. Geopolitics is my special interest, parallel to sports and fitness and rock and roll. And it is 24/7 geopolitics, sports and fitness. And when I discuss geopolitics, sometimes I can lose myself and be super focused, super intense, super concentrated. Thus, that constitutes, of course, the Asperger's, the Aspiesque, or the characteristics and traits. Myself, I do not use the words symptoms because it's not a disease, right? Asperger's or HFA, high functioning autism, is not a disease. Thus, one cannot really use the words disease or symptoms, right? We have more, it's more characteristics and traits. I feel good. I feel much better now. Characteristics and traits of Asperger's, right? It's not a disease. It's, yes, in certain aspects, it's the double D, DD effect. It's a disorder, N.A.C.W.P, and it's a disorder. It's not just a disorder, but it's not a disorder in the sense that it's a general illness or malady. So how I quantify it, qualify, discuss it. My neurological mental divergent condition has double D in parentheses, a disability and disorder. Yes, in certain aspects, it is a disability in social understandings and certain unwritten social norms. That is a disability and a disorder in certain things of how we can be clumsy or how we can have difficulty in doing certain things or engaging in certain ways that a neurotypical might find very normal and natural to the neurotypical mind, of which the neurotypicals, are 99% of the population. So we have to always build bridges. So in parentheses, the DD, disorder and disability, in parallel to the other parentheses, so they kind of co-equal, that we have SS. So DD, parentheses, double SS, special skills. So special skills. So that is, usually our special skills revolve themselves around our special interests. Our special interests. And of course, the special interest can range from Aspies to Aspies. So from different Aspies. So from different Aspies, an Aspie might have a special interest, for example, history or vehicles. Or of course, it could be vehicles, it could be trains. So it would know so much about trains and vehicles and highways. It could be highways. just knowing so much about highways. Now, because me, I put trains and vehicles and highways within the broader category of my special interest, which is geopolitics. So thus I can work with all Aspies of the world, where the Aspie is a computer scientist for the Dragonomy, because my special interest is geopolitics. So I need IT workers and I need people with IT skills and all welders and butchers and bakers and nurses and doctors and firefighters for the North American Collectif to constitute the Dragonomy for total SSD, which is my call to, of course, create the Dragonomy for many, many years now, more than 3.5. You can check back hundreds of my transcripts from COVID, as of course I'm going to be marking in mid-February, mid-March, of course, the surviving COVID right here in this room off St. Temple, where I had COVID. And of course, that is the situational aspects where we have now to be concomitant, So all that to say is that in the in the fact being that my special interest is geopolitics, and I have the holy trinity of special interests: geopolitics, sports, and fitness. Dancing being my favorite sport. As the priestess of the goddess, it's always God bless, goddess kiss, always God bless, goddess kiss. The coming of our Imperial Republic of the 63, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and my North American brothers and sisters from the USA, in the 50 states and the 13 political entities of Canada, that my fellow Canadians. I got Canada tatted up. Supposedly I got this tattooed in 2003, long time ago. It's going to be 23 years. Wow, more than 23 years. Supposedly I got it when I graduated high school, about 2003. 2003, more than 22 years ago. Got Canada tatted up, so I have the flag on me all the time, I guess. I'm flagged up, eh? Canada, I'm a Canadian, I'm Quebecer Canadian, and this is my home, Hawk Island, Montreal, and my second home, the Mountain Mount Royal, where I call all, as this 40-day new journey begins today with a 40-day new ride until February. New 40-day parallel to the 40-day began on 25th of December, going until February, for the banquet to be established March, starting March 19th, 20th, the great banquet for the Imperial Republic, and of course all that constitution where we have now to be relatively about in all the domains where we gotta eat, and gotta salute the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, and the nurses, who are now finishing a 12-hour shift. They're tired. Please be it as man is, and don't be so selfish. Finance them some massage therapy session. And for the public workers here in my neighborhood, I got 3 services: picking up the garbage, the recycling, the compost. That is the services. And of course, my work experiences, I worked on the compost, and thus we have to, of course, propose to get the DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Dance League, in order for the environment, of course, to be propositions, and in educational manner, the Dragonomy to be the Dragonomy, aka the Imperial Integrated Imperial SSD Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, which I've discussed and I have been calling and continue to call now, first day of 2026, for its constitution and the formulation thereof across the North American Collective. So pledge your legions, thou art family, or friends with benefits only. Pledge your legions, thou art family, or friends with benefits only. That's what we constitute, and that's why we have to get on the go. There's party scores, do a little dance. Pretty irrelevant. Drafted last day, 240, it's a number 44 used it with a drive, has some plays, some yards, 66 yards. Look at that. That is on the go, see? You gotta get it on the go sometimes, and just you drive it in. See, 13-3, but he didn't pass the 3, he faked the 3, and now he goes and he runs it in deep. Squishes on the side, what a play. He faked pass number 13 to number 3, 13. He almost faked it to number 3 to get that pass, and he got in by squeezing into the left. So I saw mathematics in that, trajectory and mathematics, and you got to use some math for time management when you play gridiron and football, and you got to know how many yards, how many steps you can take, how fast you can go. So it's mathematics. So much mathematics involved in terms of velocity, speed, and travel distance, because you got to gain those yards. So as an Aspie who is above average in mathematics, because Aspies we have a tendency to be above average in mathematics, right? Although not all Aspies are computer science geniuses, not all Aspies are computer science geniuses. Yes, there's a disproportionate amount within our community of Aspies who excel in computer science, such as about 20%. So 1 out of 5 Aspies might be good at computer science, but not all, because not all Aspies have computer science as a special interest. Now, in a parallel life, whence it is the year of darkness, 2030, it's February, beginning of February 2030. In the year of darkness 2030, I designed, built supercomputers, microchips, satellites, everything to do with telecommunication antennas and satellites and 3G, 4G, 5G going on to the 6 and 7G. And I built satellites, supercomputers, ICBM rockets, and that's what I do in that parallel timeline with the year of darkness 2030. And here I am, an independent artist, athlete, and philosopher, and theoretical, geopolitical theoretical analyst, thinker, philosopher, and strategist. My strategies are for the North American collective, primarily, but not only, of course, they are expansive to include the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. What a pass! The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO of which we are members, Canada, and Sweden has joined us the 32nd. So I always love to game a good game of football. I'm calling on the NFL to triple. I've been calling for more than 3.5 years now, more than 44 months for the NFL to triple the cheerleaders' salaries. And to be honest, if I could afford to buy the tickets, I would first focus and prioritize buying the tickets for the Professional Women's Hockey League. Professional Women's Hockey League. The Professional Women's Hockey League, Victoire, Montreal Victoire, they play as good as the men, and making a call to heart for the owners, first and foremost, then the athletes who are multi-millionaires, blah, 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 to donate, of course, to women's sports more, please, and some charity for 2026. And what is money but to reconstruct, rebuild, and engage, and make us to build, as we need to rebuild the infrastructure, the collective North American civilizational collective. We need, of course, to get, of course, a little bit of that rock and roll it for the B, for the left, for the right, and for the middle. And that's how we got to get, of course, those drills as we are now to implement my trinity of theories: the DRT, Fusion theory, the CIT, citizen integration theory, the DFT, democratic fusion theory, as of course via love, of course, is something which we have to implement as a strategy, as a geopolitical strategy, as we co-equivalent or our balancing of the sheet, where the social, political, and the dynamisms of course, of our North American civilizational collective, because we're going to fuse Canada, United States. We're going to fuse Canada in the United States. In the back here, you can see the both flags. So we're going to fuse Canada, United States into the Imperial Republic of the 63. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to merge up and we're going to get it on the go. So, concomitantly, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to fuse by the Imperial Republic Constitution reformulation. We're going to have 63 states. It's going to be of the Empire, Imperial Republic, and Quebec is going to be the French state, and we're going to have a Democratic Republic and a third party for the fusion thereof, the Phoenix People's Party, aka the North American Collective Workers Party, N.A.C.W.P, as a universal revolutionary centrist body. My universal revolutionary centrism is tied hand in hand with my trinity of theories, and of course, as a strategy, a geopolitical strategy, which I call the bipolar, not to be confused with the psychological psychiatric condition of bipolarity, but the bipolar strategy, total for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the North American collective via fusion Canada, United States into the imperial complex thereof. So that is what we're going to have to be, and that's what we're going to have to get on the situational aspects of the North American collective. We're going to have to be relative about all our involvements, and thus the involvements of the plurality of the structures and the appellations what we have now is that we constitute this collective civilizational complex, and we are in emergent civilization, North America, which includes Canada, United States, and even Mexico and the islands, although Cuba's a paradox. So Cuba's part, oh, what a pass, long one, number 10. That was a Hail Mary. Wow, touchdown. And Haiti, Dominican Republic, and on the islands, Jamaica and other countries are part of the North American collective. So if they want to join the empire, well, we're going to have emergency response. The Draconis is going to be integrated across all institutions and collective, as is going to formulate a mass public-private partnership for the North American collective in all the domains where we have now, of course, to be relatively, of course, involved in all the civilizational aspects of the realities of the world geopolitical situation, which has abruptly changed, especially since Russia-Ukraine crisis, or the Russia-Ukraine war, or what's called from the Russian perspective, the special military operation. It's going to be 4 years in February 24th of this year. It's going to be 4 years since that event. So in about 54 days, it's going to be it's going to be 4 years since that event where Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, I'm not on the ground with 300 men and women to make an assessment or to negotiate a ceasefire or a peace deal. All I know pretty much is the island, and I have to say that it's been so many years When I say the island of the Hawk, H-A-W-K, Hawk Island, Montreal. When I say the island of the Hawk, of course, is something which I refer, of course, to the island of the Hawk, H-A-W-K, the island of Montreal, which of course has to be suffused with all the relationships which you have with the French language, and that has to be taken into account because we're the French state, Quebec, and Hawk Island, Montreal, with the north and the south. We are a metropolis island of 2.5 million people, and about 4.5 million people constitute the island of Montreal in relationship to where we have now to be for the representatives of the Imperial Republic atop the mountain Mount Royal, the three-peaked mountain where I love to go, my second home. Mount Royal proper, of course, Mount Royal constitutes Westmount, and on the other side, of course, of Westmount is Outremont, and all is between the east and the west, exactly between the east and the west and the east. Concomitantly, it is south on the island. You can check it for yourself, Mount Royal, and Google it, and that's where you see most of my videos. I go there when it storms, when it's thunder, when it's lightning, when it's minus 20 and the snowstorm, and when it's hot in summer. So I go there all terrain or seasons, and what a great game of football this was. I'm glad that I picked this one. I was going to watch Hardball Bowl because I watch Hardball Bowl. So I watch several Super Bowls every year over and over. I watch Hardball Bowl, over and over. I watched the 1989 season and the 1990 and the 1984 season of San Francisco 49ers when we won big against the Broncos 55-10 against Denver Broncos. Hey, Joe Montana against the Broncos 55-10. I think that is the highest ever scoring Super Bowl. And one of not so many liked that Super Bowl, which I like, is not the 49ers Empire Faithful here. Our empire of the dragon, let it rise and let it be. For the firefighters, butchers, bakers, electricians, and the nurses, and the plumbers, and the doctors, and the lovers. The lovers and the youth are innocent. The children are innocent. That's the motto of the Imperial Republic, auctioning everything that I have here, 93% of the clothes that I have, and that is what we have to do now, of course, in the relevation. Oh, there's a flag on the play. Sometimes there's flags, eh? So before I wanted to say that I watch every year, even Super Bowl, I think it's 50, where Tom Brady won it, his sixth ring with the Patriots against the Rams, St. Louis Rams, Super Bowl 52, right? It was the lowest ever scoring Super Bowl. Lowest ever scoring Super Bowl ended 13-3. 13-3 was the lowest ever scoring Super Bowl, and I think one of my favorites is when the 49ers won by 55 points against the Denver Broncos, and that is one of my, I think that was, for the offense, the highest ever. Was it any higher than 55 points? I got to double check that because I know the statistics. I know there are some records. I know Purdy broke so many records, and that's what it is with the records, And Purdy broke some good records. My call to the owners of the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA is, of course, to please donate. Donate some. Donate. To donate some of those proceedings, because money is to buy, sell, and just donate some money. Reduce the ticket cost by 44.9% for the San Francisco 49ers tickets, all tickets of all the teams of the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, all the tickets where we have in plurality to be relegated, of course, the domains where we have now to, of course, establish our Democratic Republican Empire, or the 63, where we're going to fuse the RCMP and the FBI. Fuse the RCMP and the FBI. We're going to get rid of the border, make a great census, see who's the population established here, and of course create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Dance League, concomitantly the Imperial Integrated Dance League, the Dancing Goddess Army with the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion. The Dragon Army is going to constitute the requirements thereof is, we can see, I guess, if you have 2-3 foul plays, some penalties on the field, you went before the court of law and you broke some, depending, we'll have to discern. If you have 44 convictions, criminal convictions in the past 11 years, then we're going to give you the Imperial Dracula protocol of the new Canadian American Empire, the North American Collective, Imperial Republic of the Dragons. We're going to constitute the Dragon Army and My the eligibility, of course, is going to be to be able to do physical test of my workout training program system, which I created before 2019. I'm making a reference, of course, to the fact that myself, I have predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration on the horizon, and I created, made, produced a workout training program system designed, made, and created to go hand in hand with such a scenario in which the world situational aspect was going to derail vis-a-vis an international conflagration, and there will be a World War III. So I have proof for what I just said, by the way, because I have documentation dating from October 2019 online. I posted the videos, and you can see some of my videos. It says day 44, day 93, day 333, day 156, day 118 of the World War III scenario. So I predicted what's happening now back in 2019 in a parallel general manner, because one of my special interests is geopolitics. And I guess we could say the geopolitics of football, sports, especially the Olympics. I've written hundreds of pages, hundreds of different philosophies and theories, which scholars, but geopolitics, some of them are academic, intellectual, philosophical in nature. Some are more, more simple. Some are more complex in terms of the realities, and of course the fact that we are now living the geopolitical realities as have been unfolded in the past years. Of course, as we see the formulation, and I gotta give myself a little bit of reminder that I didn't leave. I think it's so for sure more than 6.5 years, between 6.5 years and 8 years, that I have not left the island of Montreal, Metropolis Island, Montreal, aka Island of the Hawk, 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 said hut. This It's been a long time. It's been a long time. So for sure I left when we crossed Canada coast to coast, and I spent a few years depressed and suicidal. I crossed Canada coast to coast with my anonymous friend in 2017. In August 2017, we crossed, of course, Canada. We went all the way to Vancouver, BC, out west, and it took us 3.5 days to go by bus and to come also. So spent 4 days going, 3.5 days going, 3.5 days coming back by bus. That was quite a bus ride. And we switched buses across because it's thousands of kilometers and thousands of miles to get from Montreal to Vancouver. And when we came back in September 2017, we took the train. It took 25 hours and 44 minutes duration for the train to reach from Montreal to Halifax. So we went out in the east on the Nova Scotia, and that summer 2017 is when, with that event, I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and ever since then, I, of course, consider my North American family, my brothers and sisters in the 50 states as well. We're going to join as one family, as a North American collective. We're going to get rid of the border fuse, and we're going to have to also make a New Deal arrangement for the rebuilding of the ghettos, aka the North American inner urban cities. We're going to have to rebuild the ghettos. The North American collective ghettos. We're gonna have to rebuild them, right? We're gonna have to rebuild the ghettos. So we're gonna mass invest as a public-private partnership, and also in order to build the 44, we gotta build 44 mass underground tunnel underground structures in case of a thermonuclear war. Because as you can see, with the recent geopolitical events, as the China drilling with Taiwan, the ROC, that is an unresolved conflict. And that was exactly one of my main premises of the motives, fundamental motives. One of the top five was, or the top three even, of my prediction that an international conflagration, aka World War III, is on the horizon in the coming 7 years, starting October 2019. Wow, touchdown! Was that there were underlying across the world many unresolved conflicts. So many unresolved conflicts across the world were not, of course, unresolved, still yet unresolved conflicts, and still those conflicts were going to be restarting in the 21st century, that especially during the Cold War period. So if you are to make a note on the Cold War period's duration, the Cold War lasted between March 1947 and December 1991. So if you take in consequence that the duration of the Cold War was almost 45. Now, as an independent philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, and theorist, I don't mind making the statement that the Cold War lasted more than 45 or 46 years. I place the duration of the Cold War between March 1947 and end of December 1991, with the perestroika, the official dissolution of the Soviet Union, the USSR. So 44 years and 9 months, almost 45 years, But I don't mind saying more. 45, 46, 44 plus, 46, yes. But 47 max, right? Because if you go before 1944 November, then we're in the Second World War. We're not in the Cold War, so I can play around. I object to saying less than 44 years and 9 months. So I can go between minimum 44 years and 9 months and maximum 47 years for the duration of the Cold War. So many conflicts, one of my main premise again was that due to these many conflicts which were not fully resolved from the Cold War period, these conflicts are going to restart. So if you look at Ukraine and Russia Ukraine is an unresolved conflict from the Cold War. Israel and Hamas, Israel, they are abroad. Israel, Iran, even because the Iranian Revolution, now what's happening in Iran, got to double check, triple check, fourth checks. But for more than 44 years, more than 44 years, more than 44 years, Iran is ruled by the Islamic Theocratic Republic. It's like a unitary theocracy, right? Authoritarian slash totalitarian Islamic Theocratic Republic, or however we want to formulate it. But since the Ayatollahs took power, right, the supreme leaders, and it's there are only two who have ruled. The one who died, Ayatollah Khamenei, in 1989, right? So yeah, so those are conflicts which date from the Second World War. Because if you look, Hamas is an organization which was founded in 1987, so during the Cold War. Taiwan, known officially as the ROC, Republic of China, is also, with China, an unresolved conflict from the Cold War period, right? When the Kuomintang in Taiwan, the ROC, ruled for more than like about 37 years. The Kuomintang ruled by martial law, right? Taiwan was for decades under martial law. They had ruled as a one-party nationalist Republican state, although it was authoritarian and under martial law. So Taiwan, the ROC, Republic of China. So that's a conflict which has not found its resolution, because China's official position is that they're going to have their reunification with Taiwan, and Taiwan is officially known as the ROC, Republic of China, while China, mainland China, is known as the People's Republic of China. But they both have and share the name China, Zhongzhou in Chinese, right? Now, I never lived in China, Taiwan. I'm a mystic. I believe in reincarnations from ancient Egypt, passing by Sumeria, Babylon, and ancient Rome, and right here, lived as a woman in New France between 1688 and 1735. And in my past reincarnation, sometimes I was born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, man, a woman, woman, a man, man, a woman, that you get that 50-50 now, half-half. I am androgynous, pansexual, So across the reincarnations, if you believe in reincarnations or want to read a cool poem, one of my favorite poems discussing reincarnations is actually George Patton's Through a Glass Darkly. So George Patton wrote a poem, Through a Glass Darkly, which of course I recommend all to read it, Through a Glass Darkly, but he only mentioned in that his reincarnations as a man, as he was a warrior, a soldier from ancient times until present day, George Patton, the general of the army. So he didn't mention that George Patton and I were married. I was his wife once, and once he was my wife. So George Patton was also in his reincarnations a woman, as me in past lives, previous incarnation. I was a man, a woman, a man, man, a woman, a man, man, a woman, a man, man, a woman, a man. So now you get that 50-50 now, and that's all you got to get that drill. So if you get a 44-yard pass, you might get close to a touchdown, or you might get the touchdown already. So I love football, love sports, love fitness, but these are my holy trinity with rock and roll and geopolitics. So, I came here with nothing really. I moved from a moldy place, and that's why I gotta be grateful today, because although I don't have much, my bank account is in the red. I survived 2025, by the way, with $11,000, and it's tough economic times for many. And this is the paradox of all my work, which I put in here over the years. That now, of course, it is the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which has to be complemented as the DRT, the debt refusion theory. The DRT, the debt refusion theory, has to be fundamentally involved in all the appellations where we are now. That the DRT, debt refusion theory, vis-a-vis also at the same time parallel with the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, and the DFT, and of course my great defensive strategy, the Total Mobile Defense Theory, the TMDT, Total Mobile Defense Theory, TMDT, which I cannot discuss over much because it's national, even binational, always binational security sensitive. So we have those binational security sensitivities, and the total mobile defense theory has to be consequently consumed and to be implemented as well. Because the total mobile defense theory, when we put a parenthesis, an S, that means we put the theory into practice. It becomes a system, right? So we're gonna do all this together starting from now, which as I encourage you all to work out, train, exercise, and we're gonna encourage citizens to work out and mass finance working out, train, and exercise, and will require my dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is a fundamental call for a public-private partnership, will require a mass public-private partnership. My brother citizen Bill Gates, Scorpio Bill Gates, Alex Karp of Palantir, and from the flock safety as well, and all institutions and organizations, BlackRock and Blackstone, and my RBC, and all banking institutions, computer science institutions, telecommunications institutions, and all institutions and organizations of both Canada and United States are called for the dream of the banquet of the Mount Royal, and my brother Scorpio Bill Gates and the NFL, NHL, and BAMLB to lay the foundations for the Draconis, aka officially the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, which will only serve for SSD, security, service, and defense, all services which can be offered, from cooking, cleaning, massaging, and washing, cooking, cleaning, massaging, washing, exercising, training, and doing rock and roll, and scrubbing toilets, and kissing and hugging and cleaning and cooking, kissing and hugging and cleaning and cooking, kissing and hugging and cooking, so it's going to be an all integrated, as we're going to get rid of the border, do a great census. We have to do a great census across Canada, United States, create a new passport, the imperial passport, and a new formulated constitution, because this fusion of Canada, United States, is my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians. The king is absent, as you know, Granddaddy Trump, for many, many years. Now, since 2018, Granddaddy Trump, you made the mistake of imposing tariffs on Canada. That was a mistake, imposing tariffs on Canada back in 2018. That was a great mistake that you made in 2018. And I don't know, Granddaddy Trump, you might have some good advisors. I'm no MAGA. I'm not MAGA. I'm a universal revolutionary centrist. My centrism is North American collective centric and is tied hand in hand with my trinity of theories: the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT, Debt Row Fusion Theory, the DFT, Democratic Fusion Theories. We're going to formulate and do a great census, as I call all, of course, now to be ever vigilant in 2026 and do an appropriate and do vigilantly and with vigor and energy implement the citizen integrated security action, this, which I took myself years and years ago. I get goosebumps when I discuss it. I got to discuss it now because there seems to be an Islamic State terrorist resurgence. Look at that, number 44. Clap, clap, clap. Yes, chick. Number 44, get ready to rock and roll. So as we move towards the procedure, I got to remind myself, when I remind myself of that, I get goosebumps, because I think maybe that's what I was saved, to save others. Because before 2015, I used to live in a very moldy underground place basement. I didn't have a bathtub. I'm grateful, thankful that I have a bathtub now. I can take a bath, so that's always good with that rock and roll, to be with it. And that's always the consequence where we have not to be relationships about, and to be the dynamics where we are consequently involved in all the representative aspects where we are to commence this great work together. Pledge your allegiance to our family. And this is a notation which is for all citizens of North America and for NATO countries as well, as we're going to formulate the DMA and integrate my strategy protocol and work to known as the direct military assistance and action, and in parentheses as possible consequences, back to the independent citizen security action, which I took myself about 2016, when here, again, I get goosebumps when I discuss it, see, I found here in Montreal, in a freely distributed newspaper, in Montreal, I found a 4-page article calling on all to support the Islamic State terror group, pledge allegiance, and start basically striking, doing actions and activity without any second of an hesitation. When I read it, I was appalled and terrorized. Right away I wrote to CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, and I dropped the document. Well, it was a free of cost, freely distributed community newspaper. newspaper, and that freely distributed community newspaper. It had about 4 pages of an article in support. Basically, it's basically Islamic State propaganda here distributed freely in Montreal. So I went right away to the headquarters of the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which are the co-equivalent of the FBI, and I got to salute the RCMP for work in October 24th, 2024, when the RCMP dismantled the biggest ever drug super lab ever found in Canada, and it had the potential to kill the population of Canada twice over. Imagine just one super lab. And of course, you got to go back to my theories and my discussions over the years. You can check over the past 3.5 years, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of philosophies and artists, not just my art, but of course the theoretical philosophies of which we are to formulate integratively in the aspects of the civilizational complex of the North American collective as a citizen security, as we move towards the formulation and the appellation of the dictums and the creation of the Dragon Empire and the Dragon Army, of course, fundamentally to be in relationships with such activities and actions such as the citizen independent citizen security action, which will work together with the Dragon Army and all these established security institutions. So that is, of course, the domain where we have now to be relationship about, and all the relationships about are to be domain, and of course to represent ourselves, where we have to get in the go and on the go and in the left and in the right and in the middle. So that is the left and the right aspects of our civilizational plurality, and that is the discussion which is ongoing. And my own action was to immediately share as a concerned citizen to do my independent integrated citizen security action, and of course to go at the RCMP, drop at the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the article in cause of the Islamic State propaganda on the Islamic State behalf right here in Montreal. And I moved here with nothing, eh? I used to live here on the island. I have problems remembering my life before January, February 2014. So more than 11 years and 11 months ago. In February is going to be 12 years. So I have kind of blackouts, flashes, and I have a very good memories. Just my life before 2014, January, February 2014, before January 2014, my life before that, of course, has to be remind myself that I have blackouts. Official term is RA, retrograde amnesia. Sometimes memory comes back. It's just before January, February, basically winter 2014. I have trouble remembering my life before that time, and I have to retrieve the archives at the Jewish General Hospital because I'm gonna give myself a deadline. Maybe I'll go tomorrow, write an email tonight, maybe. Because I went, but they close it early at 3 p.m. So between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., I got to go to the archives to retrieve the date where I went, because I survived years and years and years ago a vicious surprise attack. I was hit in the head a few times, pop, pop, pop. It was no sportsmanship, and I don't like violence. I'm somebody who I do not like violence at all, actually. So we got sports and gridiron. I guess it's aggressive, violent game in many ways, boxing, but you got to keep it sportsmanship. If you tap out, the person taps out, but it was a vicious surprise attack. I wasn't warned. Let's go, we're fighting, let's fight, let's fight, let's fight, and I say no or yes, or if I say let's fight, I don't like violence, but I only play defense. But if you are to fight, and I'm challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match and anybody else, but that's me and Donald Trump in a sportsmanship for the North American collective, because you get those flags on the play, and I played black, white, and rainbow. You got to be 18 plus for that play though. But nonetheless, I survived a vicious surprise attack, was hit in the head, hit my head on the concrete, and I was bloodied up. I had a dislocated right arm. I went to the Jewish General Hospital. They cracked it back, They cracked it back and cracked back. I was put on some medication, so I'm curious what that medication was. So I'm basically curious what the meds were that I was given, the medication. Probably for pain or reconstruction or healing or pain suppression, maybe. I'm curious. And I'm curious of the date. What date was it that I went to the emergency for the left dislocated shoulder? And I had a dislocated right shoulder, and I was bloodied up, and I want to know, when was it? Was it January, February 2014? Was it end of 2013? What date was it? I can't remember. I just have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014. I have a high school diploma. I dropped out of college here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. think my birth certificate, or not original birth certificate, but copies of my birth certificate. Copies of my birth certificate might be years and years ago. I think because I was for years and years and years, since from like summer 2014 till about COVID started, I used to go often to the great Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales. I spent basically many years with one foot in the streets, one foot in the libraries, and I think the copies of my birth certificate was placed in one of those books. So it might be somewhere on the shelves there, in one of the hundreds and thousands of books which I loaned over 6 years from like summer 2014 till like February 2020. Because I used to go to the Bibliothèque Archives Nationale and I had COVID, right here in this room St. Temple in February. Mid-February 2020, I started feeling sick. I thought I was going to die. I had it between mid-February 2020 and March 2020. So in 44 days is going to be, wow, 45 days, almost 45 days. It's going to be February 14, right? So around that time in 2020. So 6 years, wow. I got triple vax, and I encourage all to keep the protocols of COVID to get vaccinated. Super important to get vaccinated and get those vaccines up and running. And it's public hygiene, some habits. We gotta learn new habits, such as I encourage all for fitness. And I started my fitness journey right after crossing Canada, coast to coast, coast to coast, east to west in 2017. Because for about two and a half years, since about mid 2014, from about, I'm not sure, like summer 2014 or autumn 2014, late 2014 till summer 2017. So between 2 and 3 years, I was very severely depressed and suicidal for a few years. I almost took my life here. And yeah, I survived being suicidal. I was suicidal, I was suicidal, depressed, and for as long as I can remember, I'm part of the LGBTQ community in the open. Even I have written some homoerotic songs, and that date to 2012, 2013. I call it Rainbow Caesar. Rainbow Caesar is Julius Caesar, reference, of course, to that. I say, rock and roll for black and white and do the homo. Black and white and do the homo. I'm the Rainbow Caesar, yo. So yeah, I do black and white and rainbow, and I remember in 2014, Michael Sam. I didn't let Michael Sam play in this NFL because he kissed his white boyfriend when he got drafted. Michael Sam was great, still is, and he was the first openly drafted gay player. I'm pansexual myself, but I remember. So Michael Sam was drafted in spring 2014, right? Michael Sam, something like that, spring, April 2014. So I have a good memory of the past, but just before like February, January 2014, winter 2014, before that is like blackout. And maybe I used to live, it was very moldy where I used to live. I lived there until about 2015, summer, July. So I remember 18 months of living there. So trimesters of 6 divided by 3, 6 months intervals, but it was very moldy. I didn't even have a bathtub. Even have a bathtub now, so I can compensate for not being able to afford a massage therapy session, which is something that I will. But with money and finances, I'm always open for business and friends with benefits, or pledge your allegiance to our family, always for the empire of the 10, the 50, and the 3. We got to coagulate, and we got to get that rock and roll, because we're empire faithful of the empire of the 49ers rebirth. With Purdy was drafted Mr. Irrelevant, so I guess for years I was working here, and all my geopolitical work, of which I formulate tens of thousands of pages of geopolitical work, especially for the North American Collectif, which are nascent in the past 3.5 years, which I've given the call for the Dragon Septennium for world peace, from the mountain, the banquet, the top Mount Royal, the chalet, the Belvedere. Let's meet leaders of the free world, constitute the Dragon Septennium, a 7-year consummate proposition for the party, scores again for the establishment thereof of Pax Draconis, and that's what we're gonna get it for that, rock and rolling. But anyways, what matters is today, I guess. I live with my scars, and I'm always grateful. And since 2018, Granddaddy Trump. However, I gotta make a statement that I did predict in 2019 that there was gonna be an international conflagration in World War III. Look at Party go! In for the touchdown. He's zigzagging with a fake to number 23 to McCaffrey, goes left, right, and he goes in by his left side and scores the touchdown. San Francisco 27. This was so many points were scored in just so little time, you know? So little time. Just a high scoring, energetic game here. This is from last week. And the 22, there we go. Got a left and right it on the go. Right it as we go. 28-21 for the 49ers. So in 2018, Donald Trump decided to impose tariffs on aluminum and steel, 10% on Canadian aluminum and steel. And my anonymous friend, a few months later, as I was calling for the building of the Imperial Coliseum to be a sports arena built of Canadian aluminum and steel. And of course, I gotta get saying, of course, for the domains where we are now, the plurality of events where we are consequently to be in the left and in the right and in the middle, and to get it that I got this red, auctioning them for $1 million. And of course, I had them for like 7 years now. 2018, I think around October, November 2018, my anonymous friend gifted these gloves to yours truly. It was autumn 2018, between September and November, mid-November, maybe mid-October to mid-November, somewhere around maybe between mid-September till about late November 2018, around that time. So I had them for 7 years and auctioning them for $1 million, and I worked out a lot in them, you know, and still working out every day, and I've been on the fitness journey. And since 2018, I challenged Donald Trump to that boxing match on the Canadian-U.S. border, and I got into politics basically then. However, I predicted an international conflagration. I have proof for what I just said, but I did not predict Donald Trump's re-election last year in November 6, 2024, right? Because it is going to be a year of Donald Trump's new presidency in a few weeks. And Mamdani now is going to be signed in as mayor. So I think he's officially mayor now, Mamdani, which was a surprise for New York. I guess we're going to see how they're going to go with that rock and roll for that. So that is just another thing which we have to be relationships about and build relationships from the left, right, and in the middle. And my theory is best as a mass public-private partnership for the North America Collective. And we have to build those 44 tunnel cities across North America, Canada, United States, as we're going to do a great census, fuse together. We're going to fuse the RCMP and the FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is kind of co-equivalent with the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. But we have to also mass invest as a mass public-private partnership to rebuild the ghettos. We got to rebuild the ghettos, you know, super important. To rebuild the North American inner urban cities and invest in security, service, and defense, and rejuvenation, recreation, and we have to rebuild our infrastructure, our bridges, our tunnels, our bridges, our infrastructure. We got to build hundreds more skyscrapers, and we got to build the four. I'm making a reference to the four buildings, which I'm going to discuss now on the Canadian-U.S. border. My will for the public-private partnership to build the biggest ever sports arena complex ever built in the history of the world, the Trump Dragon, or the Imperial Coliseum, the Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-U.S. border, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. The Caesar Superdome, of course, is the Coliseum Sports Arena in New Orleans, where one of my favorite Super Bowls, known as Hardball Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, Super Bowl 47, which has several nicknames, and where my 49ers lost. That is change names as well as I change names. They'll officially have to pay for my changing of my name officially. But of course, the Imperial People's Coliseum, we're going to build it on the Canadian-U.S. border, and it's going to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. Caesar Superdome before was known as the Mercedes-Benz, and before that, the Mercedes-Benz was known as the Louisiana Superdome. Louisiana Superdome changed name and it became Mercedes. Oh, my eyes. Mercedes Benz Super Bowl, and not Super Bowl Dome, and now the Caesars Superdome in Louisiana, New Orleans. So several Super Bowls were actually played, fought, battled out there. And one of my favorite Super Bowls of all time in the top 5 is Super Bowl 47, which has several nicknames, including Blackout Bowl, Hardball Bowl, Bro Bowl. And my 49ers lost by 3 points. They made a great comeback. Made a great comeback because it was down at one point 28-6. 28 minus 6, that's by 22 points. More than 3 touchdowns they were down. 28 In the third period, it was down 28-6, and they made a 17-point comeback, but we lost. 49ers lost 34-31. So we lost by 3 points to Kansas City 3 years ago, and now we got Buddy back and rolling. Buddy's rolling. We're gonna win the Super Bowl. Say yes, Empire Rebirth. The Empire Rebirth. And I love football. I love gridiron, but my favorite sport is dancing, dancing, dancing. Dancing is my favorite. Dancing is my favorite, rock and rolling, and that's all we got. And that's all we got to get on these drills. And here I got the new table. I worked a little bit of work and a little bit of independent work. I didn't make much money, but $50 for it was for an hour work, so I guess it was worth it. And I got this new table, and it has two sides. The two sides have to be united, and one is a bigger side than other. It looks like it's the population ratio, and the population ratio vis-a-vis the population ratio on the size. So Canada, we have less population than my brothers and sisters, in the United States, 50 states, and of course we have bigger territories. So we're gonna have to congruent and affluent and start working to develop rare earths here in Canada. Rare earths, mass public power partnership to be able to build all technologies from smartphones to laptops to defense capabilities of satellites, sats, and screens. We need to develop rare earths because we see that there is a fundamental geopolitical aspect of a long-term strategy which many of us missed. That, of course, China has cornered much of the rare earth strategical reserves and processing thereof. So we got to get everything in the empire, including the rebirth and the reconstruction of our infrastructure, the highways, the roads, mass internal. We're going to fuse Canada and the United States. We're going to check away for the BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion, by applying my geopolitical strategy known as the bipolar, not to be confused with the psychiatric psychological condition, but the bipolar geopolitical strategy for fusion of the United States, Canada into the Imperial Democratic Republican complex for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the world, and of course to as a mass public-private partnership from the mountain atop Mount Royalist. We're gonna mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise for social imperial credits, the social imperial credits, the SIC. We're going to be formulated, constituted via all telecommunications and all, of course, corporations here in Canada. What's no crown corporations. We're going to fuse a mass public-private partnership. We're going to create the imperial corporations, imperial citizens corporations, the ICCs. We're going to formulate for security, service, and defense. The corporations, we're going to formulate them into the imperial citizens corporations, as we're going to fuse Canada and the United States as the crown corporations like the CBC and all the telecommunications radios, as we're going to build those 44 mass tunnels, and we're going to reconstruct the buildings for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, electricians, and the daycare workers who change some diapers. We got lots of work to do, lots of arbeit. We got lots of reconstruction work to do, interior, of course, reconstruction, as we're going to formulate all the relationships what we have now to be relegated, and of course in all the domains what we got now to be conclusive of about all the relationships which we're going to develop for the future conduct and the conduit, of course, of the relationships where we're going to develop for this mass buildings and reconstruction of the North American civilizational complex, and including mass financing fitness in conjoint as a mass public-private partnership with the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, in conjoint, of course, nature, as we're going to mass finance this building and reconstruction thereof, as we're going to be formulating for joy. And of course, we're going to build the 4 on the Canadian-US border. We're going to build the biggest ever sports Coliseum arena ever built, which is going to be, of course, the building structure for 24/7 sports, 24/7 fitness, 24/7 fitness and monthly activities dedicated to each firefighters, to butchers, to security officers, men and women in uniform, LOV, rock and roll, a little bit of that. And as I salute my brothers and sisters also who do their criminal rehabilitation, we're going to accord the Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act. The Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act, of course, for the Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation is going going to formulate the necessary requirements. Of course, if our fellow citizens have been convicted of 44 or more criminal convictions over the past 11 years, then we're going to implement the Imperial Dracula Protocol instead. The Imperial Dracula Protocol instead. And that's where we're going to formulate the doing of the Imperial Dracula Protocol. And that's what we're going to constitute, of course, in all the representational aspects where we have now the dynamism, of course, where we are to be suffused and incorporated in all the activities where we got as a geopolitical strategy. These are going to formulate a great rebirth and establish a new world order in the context of the Imperial Republic that we're going to suffuse ourselves to be strategizing for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion, and establishing world peace in concordiate and harmony thereof to the realities of the North American collective, which we're going to formulate into the Imperial Republic. So on the Canadian-US border, we're going to build the biggest ever arena ever built, the Imperial People's Coliseum, and we're going to also build 11 times bigger than the here we have in Montreal an arena, but it's not really an arena. It's a structure known as the St. Joseph's Oratory. So we're going to make it 11 times bigger than the St. Joseph's Oratory. That is going to be a big super mega complex dedicated to the forgotten goddess. The goddess doesn't need us or me, Lim Dig Dickley, to build her temple, because she's got the pyramids and I'm a piece of dust, sometimes lustful, sometimes moody. 99% of the time, my ways, my aspiness, my neurodivergence, weird ways, but the great strategies, and of course that my trillions of kisses as the priestess of the goddess, it's always God bless. Goddess kiss, our coming of our empire, the God bless, Goddess kiss, the coming of our empire, and that's what we're going to strategize, of course, the building concordium thereof, and of course to lead the implementation of the civilizational complex to allow us to be in the concordiate of all the relationships where we're going to extend as an imperial foreign policy directive for the Imperial Republic and the Dragon Army, which is going to focus only for SSD, security service and defense, and in parenthesis for E, emergency response, or ER, emergency response, because we see more climate emergencies, more wildfires every summer, more, of course, extreme weather conditions, as we just had 3.5 days in Montreal Island, of the Hawk Island, Montreal, the extreme weather condition where there was so much ice. There was so much ice, right? There was a lot of ice on the roads and people were slipping, and it was very problematic for the pedestrians. And you can see in my videos also marching on that, blah, blah, It requires some actions and philosophies, of course, to get the diversion. Number 18 clicks it to his left side and gets out of bounds for about some good yards, got the first down on that. So we're going to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, which is going to be 11 times bigger than the St. Joseph's Oratory. We're also going to build the House of the Dragon, pyramid. The House of the Dragon is going to be scarlet, red, crimson, scarlet, red, crimson, red, crimson, scarlet, 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 red, crimson, scarlet. What I said. I rock and roll, eh? I just rock and roll 24/7 geopolitics, sports, and fitness. Pow! Right between the middle. That was a great pass. So, and also the fourth building which we're going to build is going to be the Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergent community and fellow LGBT community, for my fellow LGBTQ community and Rainbow Nation. I'm being part of both, androgynous, pansexual, aspie artist, and 50-50 with that man, woman, man. I get the flood of fire, flood of water. Changing my name officially by the paper. Adrian Hana Dragon, of course. Adrian Hana Dragon, still officially to change that name in the official manner way, but that's what we're going to have to get on that representation where we are now. Of course, the dynamics of all the civilizational complexes where we are now to be relatively, of course, that's food security is important, and thus me working out on my right hand and on my left hand with these food securities. Of course, we had the 44-day longest ever shutdown of the U.S. government. That was a great geopolitical event in the world affairs, and the fact that the EBTs, electronic bank transfers, which relate to food securities, is known as food stamps, as well as the fact that here in Canada as well, the food bank usage since 2019 has doubled, more than doubled in just 6 years. Think about that. Food bank use in Canada, and myself, I got to be thankful for the food security which has came to me, increasing my food security as an independent citizen who's financially struggling, although rich, affluent, super wealthy, and rock and roll. kisses geopolitics and marching steps, already marched more than the generals of the United States, any general in the world of NATO. Last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, every week. Although this week, because it was, and last week were holidays, it was a bit less. It's a holiday season, but next Monday we're gonna be back in marching business, and you can see hundreds of my videos. Sometimes they're 2-3 hours long of me marching to the mountain and back, which takes more than 4 hours. So I have two marching seasons basically. Between March 19th and October 20th, I have to average between 25, minimum 25 hours. So I average minimum 25 hours of marching every day from Monday to Friday, 5 days a week. From the Sabbath starts at midnight Friday, basically a second until Saturday. And thus at midnight Sunday is the week begins, the week of our empire of the 63. We get Sunday at midnight. And of course, that's going to be the relationship where we have now, of course, the relatively about in all the pluralities where we got now to represent. And we're going to I have to state again that I have two marching seasons. And one of my marching seasons runs from March 19th to October 20th about, and the other one from about October 20th till March 19th. So basically autumn, winter, and kind of spring, summer. So about kind of split. It's not a even 6 months, 6 months. It's more 7 months and 7 and 5 months. So they're not half, 6, right? They're more 7 months and 5 months, right? If you calculate. But between March 19th and October 20th, I average a weekly minimum of 25 hours of marching, while between October 20th or 21st till March 19th, I have to average a minimum of 20. But sometimes I do more than the minimum. That's the minimum. 20 hours, have to march 20 hours minimum between October 21st, circa equinox, basically solstice, and March 19th equinox, spring equinox solstice, right? So, and then between March 19th slash 20th of March until about 20th of October, a day or 2 days more or less, right? In between 2 days, let's say between 19th, 20th, 21st of October, I gotta do a minimum of 25 hours. So that is the 20 minimum hours and 25 hours. This here's the third quarter. San Francisco 28. What a game we're having. And Chicago 21. So look at that. And they're both 11-4, 11-4. But I know who won, but I'm just looking at the whole game because I looked at the highlights and said I gotta watch this whole game and work out on it because it was one of the best games of the season, if not the best game of the season. Hot, 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 set hot on three, set hot on three. Nobody's there, gotta go run it or play it, run it or pass it, rock and roll. I should be in the Super Bowl halftime show, you know? Last minute invited guest, Rainbow Dragon. Who's Rainbow Dragon? Last minute invited guest. When is the February 3rd? Or February 6th, February 11th. Sometimes it was February 11th. Sometimes, I think Super Bowl 47 was February 11th, right? Sometimes February 6th, February 7th. Usually it's in February. Sometimes it was in January, late January or mid-January. Between mid-January to mid-February, right? Hot, 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 set hot. Stiff arm left, stiff arm right, stiff arm left, stiff arm right. Gotta get the position, gotta get it right. Set hot, set hot, set hot. I wanted to see the movie Him, you know? I wanted to see the movie Him, but it wasn't to be because I didn't have enough money to pay the $11 ticket cost for Saturdays, and I waited until Tuesday to pay less than half, $5 for Tuesdays at the movies is $5, but I wasn't able to because they took it out. It wasn't showing. Wow, number 4 scores gets bumped inside of the already. Wow. Swift, number 4, Swift for the Chicago Bears. So I guess they equalized it. Now it's 28-28 now. What a game. Very high scoring game. Third period, 9 minutes, 51 seconds on the clock. Game's tied 28-28. Chicago, San Francisco. Let's go. Gotta get this. 28-28. A very high, lots of scoring in this very offensive game, but it was lots of good defensive play. So wow, what a kick. We went all the way, eh? Got the cans of food. I don't want to damage them, so I don't want to damage any cans, It's food security right here, working for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, and electricians, the plumbers, the welders. There's number 44 with a defensive play that allows McCaffrey to go in. Number 44, Juszczyk, one of my favorite players of all time. Number 44, but Purdy's number 1 for me. My favorite player of all time is Purdy, number 13, with a pass to number 84. Speaking of the devil, long around the middle to his left. He rockets it, straight trajectory. Back. Get some yards, get the first down. Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, he was drafted last. Drafted last, and he made it to the Super Bowl. He brought us to the Super Bowl, And he lost a few games this season due to injury, and now he won them all, straight line. All wins. All the way to the Super Bowl. He's going to win. No losses, post-injury. That's the story. He's going to go win the Super Bowl. No losses after his injury. He's going to go straight record. That's going to be 7 straight wins, I guess. 8 is going to be 7 straight wins, right? Well, got already 5, 6. But if he goes to the Super Bowl, I guess 3 more. So it's going to be Purdy already has several records, or records with the 49ers. Purdy already has records with the 49ers. He has the records. So that's just got this chair, auctioning this chair for billions. It's red, my favorite color. Gonna bring it to the mountain, and firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, and electricians, the plumbers. I'm gonna eat that afterwards, and gonna check out this game, and gonna do a little bit of that wiping of the sweat. Let me see, what can I find to wipe off some sweat. Something to wipe off the sweat with. Yes, there we go. I don't want to wipe it with the rainbow, so I wipe it with this one. Ooh, number 44, but from the opposite team. And there's a number 44 for our team, and the other one. There's 2 number 44s. That was interesting. Let's see what happened. So, okay. See number 44 there from the Bears and goes down. So he went down, right? He went down really abruptly. I want to check that play again. See, he's down. Not Juszczyk number 44, but who's down is the number 44 from the Bears. See? Is he going to be taken off the field? And there's our number 44. But yeah, that's number 44, see? From the Bears, though. And then our number 44 comes in. As we're going to need to build those 44 tunnels and the Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border, and give some charity, billionaires, owners, players, butchers, bakers, nurses. And yeah, it was a hit, but it wasn't really a hit. It was off the sprained ankle, I believe. Sprained ankle. It wasn't from a hit, though, so he didn't go down from a hit. Sometimes, if you get past concussions or past head trauma, you got CTE sometimes, and then people don't even know. Some don't even know they have CTE, and they're playing. And it can happen. So that's a possibility, but nonetheless, I think it was a sprained ankle because he got up, he kind of looked okay. You can see after that he looked okay, but he had to be taken off with the machine. I call it the gridiron ambulance. It's not really an ambulance, but he was taken off the field, and his upper body looked okay. I think they said a sprained ankle, right? Let me see that. Sprained ankles. That's what they got. That's what they got. That's what they got. Sprained ankles. So that's what they drill with, and that's why they have it drilled in that, and that's always something which we have to be saying, and all those relationships where we are now to be left or right and in the middle, and to be on the field, sometimes is the manifestation of being on the field where we are now, and we got to give the conglomerations and to give the best support, and also be acknowledging that the owners also have to finance for injury recovery, and the owners of the NFL, NHL, MLB, NBA, the National Basketball Association, the National Hockey League, the NFL, National Football League, the NHL, NFL, NBA, MLB, the four, calling for them to triple the cheerleader salaries, finance women's sports. More women's sports need financing, and the Legion support the dream, the Imperial dream, and give some tickets to the plumbers, the public workers, those who pick up the garbage across the big cities. We're gonna need to build a more massive rebuilding of our trucks. They're decaying. They're from the 70s. Some of them, 70s and 80s. Some of them are rusty. And I was just reading on December 3rd an article here. I got goosebumps and I got upset. I wish I could finance the firefighters. It takes, because the billionaires of Canada, United States, billionaires, yeah, did over the decades, the years, money made because of many of the civilizational privileges. Because my thesis back in 2023 in February was a four-part series, The Privilege of Civilization, which we have. I got to give a salutation to Hydro-Quebec workers of the past who built so many dams. And 63, we got to build some more dams. And I'm doing this video with clean, zero pollution electricity, which requires no... So our electricity is clean, right? Clean and zero pollution. It all goes to five or six states in the United States, and all the way to Manhattan Island. About a fifth, 20% of the electricity goes from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, to New York State. 1/5, 20% of the electricity goes to New York. So also got to salute about that. Now they're with the trucks. Hydro-Quebec workers got to give them some rock and roll loving, and that's how we're gonna get concomitantly in all the relationships where we are now. See Buddy running on the field, doing a little dance for the rock and roll. We gotta get it for the left and give some charity. Got some good salary, 34 to 28. Buddy's got a good salary. I'm not worried about his financial state, my financial stress now. But if you give some charity, I'll be more happy. And the motto of the empire is, children are innocent. Nobody is born a dragon. Nobody is born a dragon. That's all we have to do. Nobody is born a dragon. But of course, we have to be concomitantly about all the appellations where we got now to be relatively about in all the relations where we have of our institutions and organizations and a mass public-private partnership. My dream, a mass public-private partnership is required across the great North American collective, right? A great mass public-private partnership is fundamentally my dream. There's Buddy, fakes, plays. Woo, 994 almost put his hands on him, then he goes in. Back passes to number 44. Who scores again? He goes, Buddy goes left and right. Number 94 can't get to him. Number 97 to on those steps. And then he lets it go for the tip touchdown. No fumble recovery. Sometimes you fumble, man, Sometimes you fumble. You gotta get back. Thunder rumble. Gotta get it now, and gotta get it for the left and for the right and in the middle and in the right, and of course get it for those who are left and for those who are right, and of course to appellate and do the working out, training, exercising. Sometimes you just gotta freestyle, based on some elements of stretching, and push-ups are always great. Push-ups, squats, hawks. My workout, which I created back in 2019, is a great workout program system, which I created to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario. I myself performed more than 372 sessions. I performed more than 372 sessions, so my own creative workout training program system. And of course, I'm working on the 40-day Draconis standard training days. It's going to be 40 days. So basically a few weeks, right? Almost six times 7 is 42 with that, but it's going to be 40 days special, 40 days. never to be for the Dragon Army. I'm formulating it, I'm writing it. I have been beginning for a few years now. And the standard examination is going to be the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, aka the Dragon Army Workout. The General War Integrated Total Body Training System, aka the Dragon Army Workout. And that's what we're going to be doing with that. And we're going to get conferential to be, of course, imperative, of course, all the dynamics as we're going to relay coast to coast, ocean to ocean protocols and fundamental principles, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. That's going to be the principles for our operation for total SSD. And as it relates to the total mobile defense theory, I can only discuss it with high-ranking security operatives of the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the RCMP, and David McGinty, Minister of National Defense, in cooperation with Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi and Tulsi Gabbard, or the Minister of Canadian Security Intelligence Service, and the RCMP, the CSIS. We're going to integrate into the Imperial Police Service, IPS, as we're going to fuse the FBI and the RCMP under total commandment of the total SSD, Regional Security Service and Defense, and we're going to mass finance citizens' fitness. We're going to, of course, relay for all, as well as building those four. We're going to implement across the empire the Imperial Tourist Strategy and the Imperial Tourism Ministry or Imperial Tourist Department, and we're going to accord 4 days, 4 times a year, to everybody who's 16 and over. Once a citizen of the empire turns 16 years of age, we're going to give 4 days, 4 times a year. 4 days, 4 times a year. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 will represent the 4 seasons: spring equinox, solstice, summer equinox, solstice, winter equinox, solstice, autumn equinox, solstice. Automatically, the accreditation via Imperial Social Credit Score, which we're going to formulate in these new departments and ministry, the fusion thereof. We're going to, of course, finance citizens to travel anywhere across the 63, anywhere from Quebec to California, from California to Quebec, from Nunavut to, of course, Nunavut to anywhere across the 63, because Canada is going to constitute 13, just like the original 13 states. And of course, we're going to add with the 50, make it 63. Always let our empire rise and be. For the 63, in perpetually, the perpetual imperial union of the 63 is going to be formulated in the new imperial constitution according to the law of Thelema, non-sectarian law of Thelema, the 5 main operatives of which we're going to have to secure freedom, secure liberty, and of course, my brothers and sisters who are going to be rehabilitated in terms of the homeless population, they have to have a willingness, and we're going to build and dedicate mass social housings, and we're going to build mass social housing thereof. And in the constitutional reforms where we're going to formulate ourselves, we're going to be appellative of course, all the domains where we are to relatively about in all the 63 states. We're going to, of course, be confidential about the administrative relationships thereof, and we're going to finance as a mass public-private partnership for rehabilitation, rejuvenation, and establishing a strong esprit de corps for the youth and all ages. But once a citizen is 16 and over, 4 times a year, 4 nights. Well, it's 4 days, but actually 4 nights, right? Where travel, lodging at the hotels, motels, trains, planes, buses, highways across the 63 is going to be credited. So you can take 4 nights once you pass midnight. A second is 1 night considered until the morning, right? So 4 nights, basically lodging for 4 nights with inclusive anywhere traveling. So you can travel from any state of the empire. It's going to have 63 from Quebec to California, anywhere you want. And that was going to be formulating, of course, in the representatives, where we're going to formulate the dynamic of this dynamic continuous ration thereof is going to start ASAP, right? We're going to have to start it as soon as possible. And 4 days, 4 times a year, where travel, lodging, and food will be secured for all, of course. It's going to be a mass public-private partnership. This is going to rejuvenate and establish the strongest esprit de corps. It's going to fight mental illness, is going to bring some more joy and overall wellness by all citizens being credited regardless of financial status. This reality, regardless, it requires a mass public-private partnership. Who say no will be centers of pestilence thereof, say no will be centers of pestilence thereof, say no centers of pestilence thereof. So we're going to do lots of dancing, lots of rejuvenation, and lots of volunteering. But for recreation, 4 times a year, 4 times 4 is 16. You can take it 4 times a year, or you can accumulate 16 days, take 16 days once a year, or 8 days twice a year. I'm going to do 8 days twice a year. going to be traveling for myself is going to apply as well myself. So we're going to travel from California to Quebec, from Quebec to New Brunswick, New Brunswick to, of course, Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, Louisiana, Alabama, and of course Delaware, New Jersey, New Jersey, New York, New Hampshire, New Hampshire, Rhode Island. We're going to get to Florida, to Indiana, Iowa, Utah, to Maryland, Minnesota, Mississippi, Nebraska, South Dakota, South Carolina, South North Dakota, North Carolinas, the North, the Georgia, the Tennessee, Texas, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, Nunavut, Yukon, all the way to the Maritimes, 4 provinces in the Maritimes, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Labrador. There are the four. And of course, we got Quebec coming out from the east towards the west, and then after Quebec we got Ontario, then going west we got Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, and up north we got in the middle Northwest Territories. To the west we got Yukon, then we got Nunavut towards the east, so that's 13 for Canada. And across the United States we got Maine, Vermont, West Virginia, Washington, Indiana, Iowa, Utah, Oregon, Arkansas, Alaska. I'm going to say the 58. Arkansas, Alaska, Alabama, Arizona. There's no B. C, Connecticut, California, Colorado, Ohio, Delaware, Mississippi. We're going to jump from A to B. We're not going to say it in alphabetical order. Mississippi, Maryland, Maine. Too many S's in Massachusetts, too many T's and S's makes my tongue spit quick. Massachusetts, we're going to get that Maine with no pain. Vermont, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Utah, Indiana, Hawaii, Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, Mississippi, Maryland, Minnesota, Michigan, don't forget Michigan, Rhode Island, Nebraska, North Dakota, North Carolina, South Dakota, right? We got that Georgia, Washington State, Virginia, West Virginia, Wisconsin. Don't forget Wisconsin. We got K, Kentucky, Kansas. Don't forget the K's. We got Kentucky and Kansas, eh? Oregon. We got Ohio. Don't forget Ohio. Don't forget Oklahoma, right? Don't forget Texas. Don't forget Tennessee. Don't forget, of course, so many states. We got 50, eh? Got to get to 50. So we're gonna get it one at a time. From A, there's no Z though, right? But we got Texas, Tennessee, and the T's. We got with N, we got eight N's and M. So that's how I usually start. Start with the M and the N for some reason. So we got Massachusetts, Montana, Massachusetts, Maine, Michigan. Then we got Mississippi, Maryland, Minnesota, right? Minnesota, Mississippi, Maryland, Minnesota, Maryland, Mississippi, Minnesota, Maryland. We got Manitoba. Manitoba is in Canada, though. Mississippi, Montana, Michigan, Maryland, Massachusetts, and we got, of course, Missouri. So that's 8 with M. Missouri, yeah. Nebraska, North Dakota, North Carolina, New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Nevada, New Mexico, N.A.C.W.P, Pennsylvania, Alaska, Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas. Then we got Texas, Tennessee, Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, Iowa, Idaho. We forgot to say Idaho, Idaho. Idaho. I don't know why I put you last, yo. Idaho. We got Idaho. Idaho. So there we go. We got the 50 and the 13. Did I miss any? You gotta check if I missed any. Let me know if I missed any. Not by will or volition. I said West Virginia. Virginia, yeah. Rhode Island. Maine, Vermont. Washington State. Hey, we got Washington State. We got Wisconsin. Hey, Wisconsin and Connecticut. Wisconsin. Hello, Wisconsin. Say hello. Tennessee, Texas, Florida, California, Oregon, Ohio, right? Rhode Island. Say Rhode Island. Yeah, Rhode Island, eh? Pennsylvania. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia and Virginia, right? Two different states. West Virginia, Virginia. That's what it is. And then we get to the T's we said, Texas, Tennessee. The Texas, Tennessee. That's party. Flash is one. Flash is one, number one. Ah, oh, that's a workout, you know. That's a workout. But getting some of those good plays and passing touchdowns and breaking records and go party, go 49ers all the way. Dragon versus Trump always for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the welders, the electricians, the train conductors, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those now, of course, involved in the producing food and baking and cooking and cooks and flipping some hamburgers, cheeseburgers, putting that lettuce in between, you know. Gotta get that formulation, and we're gonna get, of course, to get some of that drinking up. Red and white, fused Canada, United States, to no strong and free. So we're gonna get. That's what we're gonna do. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the formulation, man. And then we got the new table, calling all for the banquet in March 2026. Pledge your allegiance to our family or friends with benefits only, you know. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. And it's not all about the money, eh? My dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. It's always God bless, goddess kiss. God bless, goddess kiss. The coming of our Imperial Republic of the 63. Let's mass finance women's sports and mass finance tourism. This mass financing every year, four times, four seasons, every season. We had a spring, summer, winter, autumn, 4 days, 4 nights, basically 4 nights. Where to travel by plane, by the airports. What a pass! Down the middle, right rocket into the number one's hand by Purdy. Purdy is great, rock and rolling. So we're food, you know, breakfast, lunch. Don't expect champagne caviar, but you know, me, I'm just gonna keep it simple. You know, some pizza, burgers, hamburgers, double, triple cheeseburger for me, lunch and breakfast. That's good, and some fries and a coffee. You know, then some pizza or a soup. You know, some soup, some North American Canadian pea soup, pea and pork, pea soup. I love those peas and pork soups. Are great, or red lentils. Actually, red lentils and pork is one of my favorites. I cook good. I created Imperial Dragon cooking with red lentils, red beans, black beans, white beans, pork, and that's how we're gonna drill it with that, and that's how we're gonna rock and roll. The pledge your allegiance to our family, a little bit of freestyle rock and roll, and January 1st, Happy New Year's, blessing, and gonna end it here. You know, I'm not gonna do a 3 hour long video. I don't think I even have memory for 3 hours, and I think it's about two hours and a half. Maybe go to three, but hey, you want to see me for 3 hours continuous working out, finance that for a million, blah blah, give 50% of every million until 44 billion to my anonymous friend, and pledge your allegiance, and I'm gonna propose the third time, and it's gonna be a new deadline, I guess, last deadline. Make it doing ASAP, maybe the coming full moons, but if not, by March 19th of this year. So I got maybe 93 days for the final until I pay back my phone, I guess, and pay my debt, I guess, $10,000 in debt, financially stressed, but gotta be grateful, thankful, you know. I paid my rent for the month of January, paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, always open for business, paid my Netflix because I want to keep it for January to finally, beginning of 2026, finish watching Umbrella Academy season 3 and 4. Still gotta watch Umbrella Academy. I love season 1 and the second one. You know, I'm an artist. I write some dialogue for movies ideas, and Umbrella Academy season 3 and 4. Still gotta watch that, and a new season is coming. What's next? And you know, the motto of the empire is the youth are innocent. The youth are innocent. You know, the youth are innocent. The children are innocent. That's the motto of our empire. The children are innocent. So, being that the children are innocent, we gotta do it on that rock and roll with them, and for the youth. And for SSD, we're gonna build those 44 mass underground city tunnels and rebuild our infrastructure, rebuild the ghettos, aka the urban cities of North America, of which a lot of infrastructure has to be rebuilt. A lot of our infrastructure and urban cities need mass investment. That's why it's a mass public-private partnership. And we're going to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, Security Service and Defense only, and parentheses emergency response, and the Dancing Goddess Army to dance for pleasure, sweat up a bit, and do some education and action, because a lot of action is also required when it comes to get our recycling done properly, especially in the cities and in the public. Sometimes we see that in the recycling bin things are put which are not correctly, and of course in the bin. So I have work on myself to do, all the things which we have to do concomitantly in all the relationships what we got now, but we have a lot of work to do together. So pledge your allegiance, legions, black, white, and rainbow. Friends with benefits only for 2026. Somebody making LOV. God bless and God is kiss. The Imperium Draconis. Stus.